The moderator who's going to chair this panel is Anna Grosiak, standing right next to me. Please give a warm welcome to her. Anna is a head of business development at Siemens Poland, and she has international management experience of over 10 years at the top of tech industry, which will come very handy now that she has to manage our team of panelists that will face off against each other during the Oxford debate. Have fun, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So welcome to this great summit. It is my great pleasure today to lead an Oxford-style debate. So I don't know if you've heard this type of debate. I can tell you this will be very interesting. The topic of today's debate is diversity is doing well when nobody is watching. So I know that you probably have heard about diversity panels many times. So we decided not to make this debate boring. We want to make more excitement, and that's why we decided to do a debate Oxford style. So it will be like a speed debate. As you can see, there are two great teams. One is the proposition side, and the proposition side on my right side is saying that diversity is doing well only in the situations where you have to change the culture, where you do the mentoring, and that actually rules and regulations are not necessarily the criteria of success in diversity. The other side, so the opposition side, is saying that diversity can move forward only in a situation when there are rules, regulations, and quotas. So there's nothing in between. Please remember, there's only the proposition side and also the opposition side. There's nothing in between. So also, you have only two options. It means that if you take your phones and go to the inventory application, you can also make your choice, whether you choose soft version without regulations, or you are only a fan of regulations and quotas. So what do you think? How the diversity will move forward? Will it move forward with the soft version or only with regulations? So please welcome the brave and experienced leaders of today that will make this debate happen. And please warmly welcome Trinidad Hermida, Head of Diversity and Inclusion of Untitled. Marika Lulay, the CEO of GFT Technologies. Lydia Bogdanova, Technical Consulting Engineer from Cisco. And we have on the opposition side, Alain Simonet, Managing Director of 3M East Europe. Bożena Leśniewska, Vice President of the Board Orange. And Anna Durzyńska, Board Member and HR Director for Nestle Poland and Baltics. Okay, so please remember, make your voting. You are very curious if the debate will change your mind. And now, let's go for the rumble. So, let's start. Let's go with the first statement. I am time watcher, so I will keep the time. And Trinidad, you are starting first as the proposition side. What do you think about diversity? Hardboiled or soft-boiled? Yes, it's your time.
All right. Hi, everybody. So, I'm here to talk about how all cultural movements and all systemic movements have started by people. You, me, coming together, making it happen. I come from the United States, so a lot of my examples are going to come from there. So I want to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. I want to talk about Susan B. Anthony. I want to talk about Desmond Tutu. All of those things didn't happen by a government just putting something in place. It started with the people coming together, rising up and saying, change needs to happen. Why are all these women here today to talk about tech? It's because someone came together and said, we need more women in tech. So we're gonna start creating a different entry level for women. We're gonna break down the barriers for women. And we're gonna focus on ways that we can empower women, because why? There's a barrier to entry. Diversity and inclusion shouldn't be something that we have to think about all the time. It shouldn't be something that we have to force people to do. It should come from our innate being of who we are. And the fact that we have to do this day because of bias, because of racism, because of hate, has shown that if we come together as women, as we come together, women with our male allies, we can really change things. We're not here just to check a box. We're not here to prove that we're qualified. We are qualified. And it sucks that there are people out there that have to go through an interview process and feel like they are less than, and that they're being hired just for a diversity quota. That is not what we're doing today. We want cultural change. We want change that's gonna impact our country, the world. So today, what are you gonna choose? To check a box? Or are you gonna empower yourself with the tools that you need to combine your forces with other women, other men, and people who are excited about this place to make change happen?
Thank you, Trinidad. Alon, it's your time, so let's start.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So Trinidad, thank you very much. I mean, obviously diversity is doing well when no one is watching, right? Maybe we should go back to the very root of what this assertion or this question is. Diversity is doing well? No, it isn't. It is far from doing as well as it should do. When no one is watching? Well, let me tell you, I can see at least 6,000 people here watching, and this is great because for the past decades, I don't think we were watching enough. So in my 2 rounds, very quickly, I will bombard you with facts, realities and facts that make sure that we're all in this room in agreement, all together, that this requires structure and aspirational objectives to change our world of diversity. Secondly, I will try to convince you in the second round that there is a case for it. But I think we should even say that worse than not looking, we were turning a blind eye. I will not expand on it, but just remind ourselves of Me Too, Harvey Weinstein, or more recently, Jeffrey Epstein, to be convinced that everyone should be watching so that diversity can do well, much better than it does. So let me move on. Let me refer to some facts. Globally, 32%, that is the gender gap on a worldwide average basis. Out of 149 countries, 55 countries have regressed towards this parity. Only 7 top countries have reached 80% parity, so we need to watch. At the current speed, it'll take 108 years if we follow what our proposal is there to get to globally gender equality. More than 60 years in West Europe, and you know what? In East Europe, in our space, 124 years. I'm not prepared for that. We should not be prepared for that. Did you also know, and I'm losing my papers, my facts, I'm sorry about that. Did you also know that, that out of these 149 countries, Poland is number 42 on the global index. In front of us are Namibia, Cuba, Lithuania, Albania, and just behind us, Uganda and the United States. So you're still not convinced that we need to change something? I think we should be thinking about it twice. Thank you very much.
Okay. So that were the first statements from the proposition and from the opposition. So let's see what comes next. Marika, are you ready?
Well, as much as I agree with the goal that we should achieve equity, equality, I think regulation is the tool from the past. It was a tool in the last century to enable women to have the right to participate. But today it's not about having the right. We have the right. It's about, we talk here about the Women in Tech Summit. And in the tech industry, the market pressure for top IT talent is so strong that simply nobody in technology can afford ignoring 50% of mankind. So the tech industry certainly is the industry with no gender pay gap, simply because we cannot afford. So we don't need more regulation. What we actually need is more women going for STEM studies, learning the stuff, enjoying the job, and simply focusing on not being a woman, but actually participating in one of the world's most fascinating industry, building software for the future. It's not about regulation, it's about market success, and it's about simply making this world a better world, being a woman, being a man, colored, non-colored, regardless.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm the leader. I'm being the mentor for many, many years. I'm supporting plenty of the women organization. I'm the initiator of the internal organization in Orange that supports the diversity and women and men equality. I'm co-author of the studies, the first in the Europe studies for women, leading the women from the mid-management to the boards, which are the second edition has just started a month ago at the Koźmiński University. And I'm so much engaged, and I'm really fed up already because I do not see the significant change in the equality. As you could already hear from the Alan, the Global Gender Gap Report says that it will take over 100 years for us, for women, to be equally treated as men are. It will take over 202 years to become equal in the work environment. If you look at the women leaders in management boards, in supervisory boards, the progress from year to year is about 0.5%. It means that we will be at the same position in 50 years' time. I'm already tired with this, so I believe that we need not only regulation, because the European Union takes care about the equality and has the regulation about it. Each country, each member country has the position has the rules about it, but it does not work. We need KPIs, we need action plan, we need actionable activity around it at the level of countries, at the level of companies, everywhere. It's not enough to be a role model. It's not enough to be engaged. It's not enough to be a mentor. We also need to have the rules and measurements for it. Thank you.
So, Lydia, what do you have after this strong statement in statistics?
I want to run an example on regulation that the opposition is so keen on insisting on. What would be the most frequent example on regulation on diversity that we may have in a technological company, let's say? That would be a quota. What we don't have is enough women in technology. So let's say that your company implements a quota on hiring more women. And the day of the interview comes, you have female candidates, male candidates, and as part of the quota, you hire a female candidate because you need to fill in the position. That woman starts the job, and imagine, for the sake of the example, that you are that woman that got hired as part of the quota. How would you feel about yourself knowing that you have been hired to fill in a box in a report and not necessarily based on your skills or merit? Picture that for a moment. How would you feel if there is a doubt in your mind that on that day of the interview, perhaps there was a better suited candidate for the job that showcased better qualities matching for the job, but you got hired instead? How would your colleagues feel about you knowing that you've been hired as a quota? Would they be able to respect you as an equal professional? I think not. I think your performance and your colleagues' performance in your team will dramatically decrease because of this. Your company's reputation will suffer as a result of this as well. So you may not have future candidates applying to your company, and your clients may not want to be associated with you because you would have a bad reputation. That's a direct result of forcing diversity through regulation. And that's happening more often than we would like to admit. In our working lives in the corporations that we work with, we often have regulations, well-intended rules and policies that, unfortunately, in many cases, more often than we would like to admit, get misinterpreted, misunderstood, or purely misused due to bias, let's say. So why are we focusing on patching up the current situation instead of fixing the actual problem? We need a long-lasting change which will come from creating around awareness around the importance of diversity and the benefits that it brings. And we need a cultural change. And that does not happen through regulation. It comes from understanding diversity. It comes from liking it, appreciating it, putting actual efforts on a daily basis to work towards achieving it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, so last voice from our side. I have 20 years working in business, and also I spent already 10 years working in management teams. And all the time I was proudly representing the HR function in few companies in my career. And so I want to make this message a very personal message, because gender diversity is a hot topic in HR departments and in leadership teams for, I would say, 15 or even 20 years. And what we were doing all the time, you may ask, because the statistics is as it is. We were coaching, we were mentoring, we were preaching how beautiful diversity is and how much it can bring to the team. And you know what? After this 15 years, I'm quite confident that we failed miserably, because the statistics is not as we would expect being at that time and starting this whole discussion. And even in the country like Poland, that is a traditionally country of strong females, because at least last 200 years, the male were fighting on the wars, they were sitting in the jail fighting for freedom, and female was the one that was providing for the family, that was taking care that the family survives. We are also a country where the female are much better educated. We heard that 65% of university graduates are female graduates. And this is not only last year or two, but this is repetitively last 10 years. So if we didn't achieve this in Poland, in such a country, why we should not change something after trying with all the methods you mentioned for the future. So now I'm absolute fan of giving business what business likes the most. The managers love KPIs, love smart goals, and loves expectations they can fulfill and possibly even get the bonus for. And this is how I would drive diversity further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have our first round, and let's see what are your votes after the first round, because the second round comes. Okay, so do you believe that diversity without regulation and quotas have any chance to move forward? And yes, you believe, 52.7%, no, 47.3%. Okay, so now we are moving to the second round. We are changing a little bit the rules, so all of you continue with the pitches, but there's one but. You have a right to ask questions to the opposite teams. Trinidad. So now it's your pitch starting.
Oh, wait, my pitch is starting? So wait, does the question interrupt my pitch?
You can do the pitch,
And then ask the
now
question?
they can interrupt you. So be ready.
All right, let's go. How many women in here are in tech? How many women in here that are in tech got there super easy? I need you to look around. 90% of the hands went down. There are policies in place right now, and have been for the last 10 to 15, 20 years. So you're telling me that policies actually make change, and all of you in this room had a hard time getting into technology? I think y'all need to change your vote. Because real change happens when we as women come together collaboratively and make that happen by knocking on the doors of our leaders, having our male allies actually be in the room and advocate for us so that we can see that change. I mean, I feel like I'm talking to people who understand my plight, understand my journey. I've been in corporate America for over 10 years, and I've always been the angry black woman. I'm not angry, by the way. I mean, some of y'all hear me. Or the woman who speaks out too much, or the woman that men need to explain what I just said again. Can I get an amen? You know, we really need to start standing up for ourselves and bringing our whole selves to the interview, because this code switching stuff ain't working. When I come into the room, I am a boss. I speak like a boss. You hired me because I have the knowledge and the understanding for the job. So all the women in here know that in order for us to see real change, we have to come together and stop being misogynistic and hating on our sister, but empowering each other. I know we're talking about systematic policies. We're not going to reverse 400 years of systematic oppression by adding another system. I think collaboratively, if we all talked after the debate, after we win, if we all talk, like, we would like to work together, right? But at the same time, real social movements and real change happens when we come together. You, each and every person in this room, has a choice whether I'm going to fight for this or not, including the men. Thank you, the men who are sitting in the front.
10 seconds.
But if we don't come together, ain't nothing going to happen. And I really wanted to use an explicitive. You know what's not happening.
Allow, it's your time.
You are again, and I would not dispute that some of the elements brought by the proposal side are valid elements. But again, I think the statistics we shared with you are, relevant enough to say that doing the same thing again and expecting a different outcome would be probably getting close to madness. So, adopting gender-blind or gender-neutral policies is probably, certainly not enough if we want to do something different. Should we talk about forcing diversity? Should we talk about quota? Maybe not, but we can certainly talk about rules. We can talk about regulations. We can talk about policies, ambitious policies, maybe more stringent policies and measurements and KPIs, as my colleagues very well brought to you earlier on. But of course, most importantly, these elements have to be absolutely built at the core values of our institutions, of our companies. We represent companies. I do represent a company, of our organization. And this is how we can continue to build a real premium for what we're doing in our markets, in our horizons. So just 3 reasons, quick reasons, why proactive, pro-diversity measures can help, will help, and are working better. Firstly, because they bring substantial positive effects. Talk to the countries in the Nordic countries, and my colleague elaborated a little bit of that. When you clearly discuss now with board of directors, a higher gender diversity clearly brings more robust governance decisions, more and better risk management, and more disruption in the way of thinking about issues and solutions, because it also brings a useful shock to the system. You're bringing a point to us, which is an obvious one that we need to address. We are prone, to unconscious bias and stereotypes. We form networks with who we socially feel more comfortable every day. That's the nature of things. And these subconscious processes are strongly embedded in ourselves, but also in our organizations, in our companies, in our society. Denying that is probably denying the reality. So stringent, pro-diversity KPIs, structures, policies will help provide that shock that can disrupt the system and should disrupt the system. Last but not least, there is a business case for it. I'm from 3M company, and in my company we see diversity as a competitive advantage. You heard Vina earlier on talking about this. It brings fresh perspectives, different angles, new ideas, more creativity. And by the way, in all our companies, we talk about our customers. We talk about customers listening to the customers. We're present in more than 120 countries around the world. How can we pretend that we would be listening and talking and serving this diversity of customers without being diverse ourselves? So there is a premium, there is a case for this. And again, diversity is one thing. It's like being invited to the party, but it's about including. Inclusion is being asked to dance. So hold yourselves, let's hold ourselves accountable, and let's dance together.
So let's move forward.
Sorry, but you keep talking about the wrong tools. I fully agree with the goals. I mean, which company on earth could disagree that diversity is positive? All what you described, I fully agree with the goals. But the tools you propose, is a male tool, right? Regulation, rules, black and white. And it's then easy to circumvent and debate the interpretation and come up with thousands of excuses why this role does not apply. And worse, I tell you a story. In Germany, I'm from Germany, we have a rule, obviously, every company has to publicly predict the percentage of women in their leadership team. They can predict every number between 0 and 100. There is no penalty, whatever number they predict, and there is certainly no penalty beside a bit of public shaming if they don't meet the number. So what have most companies done? Because it's difficult to exchange top management, especially if they're performing. So they predicted 0. They comply with the goddamn rule, right? Does this change the whole discussion? Not at all. Instead, these managers focus on discussing the rule, discussing the percentage, get animated. I think it's a wrong focus, complete wrong focus. We have so many talented women, well-educated. Why do we not just trust that force? A company which needs a rule has lost. A company which only implements diversity because of regulation has lost. So honestly, I don't want to force my competitors to understand market intelligence if they don't do. I don't want them to comply with regulation, I think each company should have the right to do what they have to do to perform, and they should do what they have to do to perform. And if diversity is something they believe in, that this brings them more success for their employees, their shareholders, they're going to do it. And the ones who don't see that, let the market decide. I'm pretty sure the market force will simply drive it. It's a wrong tool.
Thank you.
We didn't touch the subject of the pay gap yet. Depending on the survey, depending on the report, there is the difference between 6 and 20% between men and women doing the same job. Why is it so? Are we worse? Are we different? Are we less intelligent? Have you ever heard that the IQ scale, IQ table score are different for men or for women? No, they are exactly the same. We have the same capability to learn. We have the same predisposition to do the job which men usually do. The gap payment come mainly from the fact that the so-called women domains, like the education, like the medical services, like social services, are usually occupied by women. And the business, technology, usually by men. There is no reason and there is no evidence that we cannot do both jobs. And the reason why is it so comes not from the nature, but from culture, but from the education, from how we were educated in the world of stereotypes. And the cultures differs. If we refer to the Gender Equality Index in European Union, where Poland has only 55.2 points out of 100, which means full equality, but at the top of the same ranking, there are 4 Scandinavian countries: Iceland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. The culture there is different. The rules are different. The KPIs are different. Let me give you the example from Iceland. If you are an entrepreneur and employ 25 plus employees, you have to present and you get to obtain from the regulation office the confirmation that you have the equal payment for men and women. Let me give you the example from Norway or Sweden. It starts just after the baby is born in the
30
family.
seconds.
Both men and women can take the leave, paid leave, and take care about the kid. There is no differentiation. So these rules were created long time ago in these countries. The culture is totally different there. So it's why these countries are leading. They also have the good leaders, role models, soft skills, the support, mentoring, but also the regulations, the measurements, and the support and the huge execution to deliver what they decided to deliver. Thank you.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to the last 2 persons that will also make the final statement and the summary for each group. Lydia.
We've been talking, Nordic countries have been given as an example, as a very good example of having diversity. And you mentioned yourself, the culture of the Nordic countries is different. It's not just the regulations, it's the culture, it's the mindset that they have. And when there is a regulation in place which doesn't work, what happens? You have protests, you have creating of cultural awareness around the problem. The problem is being discussed, people understand it better and they start to address it despite the existing regulation. So I want to focus once again that regulation could backfire and it's not always the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is to create inclusive culture in the organization, in the society, and that way nurturing diversity as a result of it would be also the right thing to do. I think having a lot of regulation, especially in the context of companies, in a way makes you a bit lazy because you feel as if you have done your part, you have checked the box, we have this rule, we have this policy in place, and we don't have to think anymore about it. That's it. I may not understand the problem, I'm aware that there is some kind of a problem, but I have no idea what stands behind it or how can it be fixed. All major change starts from social movements and breaking the barriers. These barriers may have been even created by rules and policies. Diversity should not be something that we force on people. Diversity should be something that is understood, embraced, appreciated. Something that we need to come together and work towards too as allies. Now we have enough rules in place and rights. It's time to enjoy the achievements that we have made so far and work towards a better future from now on. As was said earlier when we kicked off the summit, We don't want to be hired, and I'm talking from the position of a woman that is an engineer in a deeply technological field. I don't want to be hired because I wear a skirt. I want to be hired because of my skills, because of what I'm capable to do, because of what I'm also potentially capable of achieving in the future. I want to be hired based on my own merits, not based on my appearance. And as you mentioned at the beginning, there are 6,000 people here today, and who knows how many more watching the live streaming of the summit. What is it that you think we're doing today? Are we creating policies and rules and regulations? Or are we creating awareness around the issue at hand? And aren't we all working together towards better understanding of the problem and addressing it, and therefore a better future for all of us? I'll leave you with that.
Anna, last but not least, the stage is yours.
So I would like now to give you some examples of how you can work with diversity different than only by mentoring or coaching. And I will use the example of our company because I think we are doing a lot to create a mindset for many years. We have great mentoring programs. We improve every year the parenthood policies. We implement flexible working solution. All great. But what we started to do differently recently, we also introduced KPIs. And the company tells globally to all market heads, to all country heads, look, we expect you to build your teams in your countries much more diverse than you did in the past. We expect you to rise the female quota by this and this % until a certain deadline. And you know what? It works beautifully. And I can tell you also, these are not empty skirts. These are really talented, clever women that suddenly got spotted and suddenly received the chance to get promoted. We also started to measure the quality of succession plans because building strong female-oriented succession pipeline is the key. And you know how we measure this? We ask every manager when he or she thinks about successors for him or her to have at least one female successor ready now and not less than 2 that will be ready in longer perspective. And you know what? We started to get much more diverse succession plans for the future. And this is how you support females using the rules. And I absolutely don't agree that they are less talented and they were selected only because they were scared. There is also one wonderful index that is called Bloomberg Gender Equity Index. And this index measures the company whether they really treat female and male employees the same, with the focus on salaries, for example. They look close on each and every affiliate of the company and they check whether the salaries are granted because of the achievements, because of performance, and not because of the gender. And this is also one other aspect, this is also one other example how you can measure whether the company really does good on gender diversity. So just few examples, judge for yourself whether this can really improve the situation and we don't have to wait another 100 years to reach the gender balance in our organizations. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. I hope that that was something energizing for you and not boring. Now let's see what are the results. Oh, it's even more. So you even more believe that the diversity should be actually without quotas. It should be really an environment, a culture where diversity is something natural. So 2 things from my side. So I really encourage you to take these results with you. Just think, act, and engage other to be more diverse and create inclusive spaces. And please warm Applause for brave leaders that presented to you the new insights on diversity.